So how I'm going to measure this is the fold on the largest one, and that is 6 inches, and so I'm going to line that up and measure to the middle, and then 2 inches either side, and then the next one is smaller, comes in 1/4 inch either side, so I would want to line it up so that it's centered, and then mark each one there and there. So I shall continue doing that. I've marked them all up now, and I'm just going to poke holes through. I shall know where to sew when the time comes. Continue with the rest. I'm going to try and make some faux leather for the cover, and I'm adapting Sheena Douglass's faux leather recipe. She uses a craft cardstock, but I've got these old service cards from church, and it's not as heavy card, but it doesn't really need to, because it's not going to be standing alone. It'll be mounted onto the cover of the book. So I thought I'd try this, and if it doesn't work, there's nothing lost. But I want to try and make this whole album out of recycled rubbish, really. So she mixed up a solution of glycerin and water in the proportions of about 1 to 6. So in a little spray bottle, and then just spray onto the card. This has the effect of softening and breaking down the fibres, so that it becomes less card-like and more leather-like. And then she just uses her fingers to massage it gently into the surface. This is very poor quality card compared with a lot of the art stuff that we use, but it may be alright. It looks a bit... I can feel the surface breaking up there a bit. I need to be careful not to rub too much. I don't want to just turn this into pulp. Now I'll turn it over and do the other side. It's quite nice and wet. It already feels softer. And I'm going to try and crunch this up without tearing it. Just gently to start with. Let's put some of that up. Sheena does it on craft card. Of course, it doesn't need painting. She just does it with distress inks. But I will have to paint this. Now, unfolding has to be done carefully in case it tears. So I've torn it there a little bit, I think. creasy effect that you get with old leather. And then we'll repeat the process. I'm quite pleased this ink isn't running. I must have done this on a laser printer, I think. If this doesn't work, it's only rubbish anyway, and I can do it with something else. Let's try screwing that up again. It's already feeling quite different. Do it one more time, that may be enough. There's a little tear there, but that doesn't matter. I've got plenty to play with, so I think I'll be alright. Excess. Scrunch it up again, and I think that will probably be enough. It feels quite wet now. Yes, there's actual moisture coming out of it now. Quite fragile now. I think there's another tear there. Just have to be careful with it round the edges. I think that will probably do. And now I'm going to dry it with the heat gun. Yeah, a bit come off there. Yeah, it's quite fragile now. I've done a second sheet, and I managed to do this one without tearing it at all, and you'll notice that where the glycerin was on before, when it was wet, it had a sort of grey transparent look, but with drying it that's disappeared. It still feels slightly damp. I think it needs a little bit more drying with the heat gun. While I make sure that these are completely dry, I'm just going to start preparing this this cover. What I'm going to do, this spine is where the signatures will be stitched through, and I don't want that showing. I've decided not to have a decorative binding made up with those, so I'm going to use the faux leather to cover up to there, I shall use both sheets, one for the front and one for the back, completely cover that and just turn it in onto the inside, front and back. And I'm just going to paint this spine for the moment. I shall do that with black gesso and then with black acrylic paint, so that none of the printing shows when the book is completed. Right, this is the black gesso, and this is just some cheap craft black acrylic. There's no point using posh stuff really to this. That is pretty dry. I use the brush, I think it's dried out. I've had this for years. I don't suppose anything will show really, but I don't want to risk it. It's quite dry. This will be covered with the end papers. Now for the other side. I get through a lot of this Tesco everyday value dried skim milk because I use it for cooking. I've got quite a lot of boxes. Should really be working on that. This is another Jennibellie trick. I try and keep mine according to colour schemes. This is black and brown, and when it's nicely covered, I can use it for backgrounds and things. Get rid of that. And now black acrylic. Oh, I'll just dry that. Plenty in the lid, I'll use that. Putting the gesso on first gives a bit of tooth, and also I don't have to put so many coats of paint on afterwards. As long as that's covered, I'm satisfied. Dry that off now. And now for the outside. I think that gives quite good coverage. That'll be fine. It's amazing how much paint one wastes in the water jar. Even so, when I wash it out after this, there'll still be quite a lot of black in there. Give that a quick dry. Okay, now I'm going to start painting these. This feels slightly damp, but I think they'll be alright. I'm going to do raw umber first as the base colour. I'm also going to use the black and possibly a yellow ochre for a bit of highlighting afterwards. Set off this back. Slightly more watery. See how we go. Oh yes, that seems to be all right. I'll possibly need 2 coats, I think. It's working it well into the creases. I don't want any white showing. Feels almost like chamois leather. It's got a, with the fibres being broken up on the surface, it's got a felt-like feel, slightly soft. Well, I'm very happy with how this is going. It's looking very leather-like already. I do need to put another coat of the brown on once this is dry, because there's a bit of white showing through. I want to make sure that absolutely none of the printing is showing. You can see a little bit there, but that's okay. We'll dry it and then we'll do another coat. It's still a bit damp, and I'll set that aside to dry a bit more, and I'll do the other one. Right, applying the second coat, and I'm not going to make it so watery this time, because the paint does have the effect of stabilising the fibres a bit, so I can be a bit more, a bit less delicate with it this time, I think. The remarkable thing about this faux leather is that I've done some before, but not quite the same as this. It not only looks exactly like leather, but the more you work on it, the more it feels like real leather, which is quite extraordinary, I think. It doesn't smell like real leather, of course, and that's a pity. Perhaps somebody will invent a spray bottle that you can spray on some real leather smell. Be nice, wouldn't it? This is sort of vegetarian leather. Now that's with the second coat completed. It's still a bit wet, so it's a bit shiny looking, but that's just with the single coat, and I think you can see the difference. So it definitely needs 2 coats. Up my side to finish drying. Get going on this one. And it is better applying the paint without too much water. Now I've decided against antiquing this any further by adding black, because it'll make it too dark, but I'm just going to try on the edge just to see how this looks. With a little tiny bit of yellow ochre just dry brushed on. Overdo this, so do it just there where there's a tear. It's still slightly tacky, but I think this will take all right. See whether I like that effect. It's too yellow. I've got plenty to play with, it doesn't matter if I just use the edge. You need something, but I think that might be a bit too yellow. I've got some burnt umber, which is slightly lighter. Try a bit of that on its own, and if that's not right, then I'll mix it with the yellow ochre, and we'll see how that looks. May not be different enough, this. I want to just pick up the where the creases are, give it a bit more dimension. I don't think that's really showing enough. I'll mix. Mix the burnt umber with the yellow ochre, and we'll see what that's like. I think I want it as yellow, really. Yes, I think that's better. Getting there now. That's quite good. The advantage of having a mixture as well is that it varies a bit more subtle tones. That's the first one done, I think. I don't know whether you can see, but compared with that one, which isn't done, it's a bit hard to tell really whether that's showing up on the video. But I think that's an improvement. So I'll do a bit more on this one. Very light touch. Not to overdo this, just a suggestion. Right, there they are. I think that will probably do once it's dry. I'll be able to do some experiments either with acrylic varnish or perhaps a bit of acrylic wax. We'll see what it looks like. I've got enough to play with around the edges. You wouldn't think it started life like that, would you? It is remarkably leather-like, but I think it'll feel even more so once it's fully dry. So I'll set those aside to dry and come back to that later.